mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion, champion, champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security.
Happy Monday. We're here at the Nationwide studio. Those Let's Start Justice. I think you can look and you see the celebration happening. So happy 20th to Nationwide News Network. It's one of those stations that I tune into from 6:30 a.m. all the way back to 8 p.m. every day. I tune in on my Nationwide while I balance listening to the
Your
other
staff
programs.
is aware. we can hear it.
Yes, they listen to Nationwide by default. So we're quite pleased to be here joining in the celebration. And congratulations to CEO Cliff Hughes and his team on ensuring that the public gets fair news. Even sometimes when we're in the news item ourselves here at JFJ, and we may not be happy with certain coverage, but it's certainly a fair one. So kudos to Nationwide and on this milestone. We're happy to be a part of the Nationwide family as well. Yeah?
Yes.
But having said all of that, my name is Michael Jackson.
And I'm Jade Williams.
So today we're going to be talking about what can be done to improve police-citizen relations. And we're going to be joined by Clifford Blake, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Police at IPROB, Inspectorate and Professional Standards Oversight Bureau, as well as Mrs. Otara Byfield Nugent, who is the CEO of the Police Civilian Oversight Authority. So when we're going to be having the conversation, we're going to be listening in. What are your rights? What good work is the police doing to ensure that the police-civilian relationships are strengthened, or relations rather? But yeah, good things going to be had for the next hour or so that we're here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Yes. So, Michael, what happened over the past week?
You know, we've been watching this particular situation, and we touched on it 2 consecutive weeks, looking at the impact of that stop order that came into being regarding USAID funds. And we have some partner agencies that have been severely affected. Rise Life Management Services, Jamaica Network of Seropositives, Jamaica Aid Support for Life. These agencies, they were flagged in the media as being affected with the cut from their U.S. funding support. And, you know, I just want to indicate to the public how important these agencies are, the communities that they serve. E4Life, for example, working with adolescents who, in some instances, have been sexually assaulted and raped, some of whom have contracted HIV. And Eve has been providing much-needed mentorship support to these young ladies. Jamaica Aid Support for Life started in 1991, the largest HIV-focused organization that has a clinic providing services to people living with HIV. Jamaica Network of Seropositives, a network of people living with HIV. Excellent work being done. Rise Life Management Services, I can't even speak of how great Rise Life is when you're talking about substance abuse and counseling support that they provide, including support to children who sometimes may be drinking and doing drugs that they're not supposed to be doing. But Rise Life is there working with at-risk communities and at-risk youths. Excellent work being done by these agencies. But what President Trump and Elon Musk have done, we're seeing devastating impact, because JN Plus, for example, since that announcement of the stop order, they have had to send home 26 staff members, 26. So it's something that we're going to be watching, and I would ask our listeners really to just keep these agencies. If you're a praying person, keep these agencies in your prayers. If you're just thinking about them, then please do that as well. They need all the support, and hope that President Trump will let good sense prevail based on the excellent work that USAID has been doing and will continue to do. Yeah. All right. Another thing, Jade, very quickly, week that was, you know that we spoke to the matter of the constitutional reform and our submission. We're near completion, as we had promised, and we're going to be disseminating our submission by tomorrow is our intention. Unfortunately, we have not heard back from the the Joint Select Committee, rather, reviewing the Republic bill, but we will make our submission just the same. But we realize that the opposition members did not turn up again last week, and the point that we're making is the opposition, they have some concerns, and some of them are shared. For example, where are we going with the Privy Council versus the Caribbean Court of Justice? What JFJ is saying, however, though you have those concerns, go to the Joint Select Committee, air those concerns, and then if you believe that the bill is not in the best interest of the country, you do have the ability at Senate to block it if you so see that as the necessary step. But be a part of the conversation. You have a duty to your constituents and to the country in having dialogue. Having said that, however, it is unfortunate that the government has taken so long to make their position known on the Privy Council versus the CCJ. We know through utterances and past statements by past leaders where the thought processes were that the Jamaica Labour Party wanted a final court here in Jamaica, and I believe that Minister Malahoo Fort indicated that that is where the position of the government is at the moment. I stand corrected if that isn't the case, but that's what I remember hearing from the last Joint Select Committee. Having said that, however, what I think is important is that if that is the position of the government for a final court here, I don't think that is feasible. But at the end of the day, the government must indicate, have they done any research as to some of the judgments and so on coming out of the CCJ? Have they done any economic feasibility research about establishing a final court here in Jamaica, especially when our justice system already has significant challenges? I think those types of answers would be quite critical for us to even start having a conversation about a final court here in Jamaica, which most legal minds are saying it's not a feasible option at this point. And I wouldn't want the government to be putting a carrot in front of the eyes of the Jamaican people that they know has no economic feasibility at this point, or logistical feasibility, rather than moving towards the CCJ. So it's a conversation that must continue, but I would urge both political parties to come together, have some conversation between the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition, because consensus must be reached on some critical matters, because you cannot go to Senate and have this bill moved to a referendum unless 2/3 majority is agreed or achieved at the Senate level. Because otherwise, if you're to move without the consensus of the opposition, you're going to need 3/5 of the voting, of the electorate voting in that referendum to say, I agree with the bill as you're proposing. And that's going to be a tall task to achieve. So consensus is important. All right.
All right. Thank you for that, Mikhail. So we're going to go straight into our trivia and right of the day. So our Did You Know for today has to do with your rights upon arrest. And this came directly from the JCF's Citizen and Police Relations Code of Conduct. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the JCF does have a code of conduct. It is online if you want to take a look at it, but it should dictate how citizens and police interact with each other. So when it is that you're arrested, you should recall you have a right to humane treatment. You should be clearly informed of your rights. You should know why you're being arrested in a language that you understand. You have the right to remain silent, and this cannot be used as evidence against you or as evidence of your guilt if you remain silent. But what can be used against you is the words that you say. So always remember that part. The police cannot force you into a vehicle or take you to a second location without you knowing where you are being taken, and that should be clearly communicated with you. You should be allowed a phone call or a note or a message to a person of your choice, and you have the right to legal representation. So none of the things that happen at a police station, question and answer, ID parades, so on, should be happening without your legal representation present. And if you can't afford one, you can get a duty counsel to assist you.
Yeah.
So for trivia question for today now, we are asking, we have 14 parishes in Jamaica, but how many police divisions do we have? So you can send your response to our WhatsApp at 2397583. You can respond in our chat on YouTube or can respond on our Instagram at JA4Justice. So despite having only 14 parishes, how many police divisions does Jamaica have?
Our deaf news commentator getting that today because that one look a little bit hard.
I would think it's easy.
All right, we take the break and then we come back with the conversation with iProbe and PCOA.
Good morning and welcome to the newest addition to the Nationwide News Network family on Hot 102.
Good afternoon, I'm Erica Allen.
I'm Elizabeth Bennett. In Nationwide News at this hour.
This is Nationwide. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Carol Narcisse.
Morning, welcome to This Morning on Hot 102.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Beverly Anderson Manley. Good morning and welcome.
For 20 years, Nationwide 90 FM has been your trusted source for breaking news, delivering critical updates when you needed them most. 3:37 in the afternoon, we interrupt to bring you more from the One Don Klansman gang trial. Another guilty verdict. With fearless, fact-based journalism that unearthed the truth.
Between 2012 and 2018, nearly $5.5 million was taken from the track legend.
And insightful commentary that sparked meaningful conversations and shifted perspectives.
Welcome to the front page. I'm Emily Crooks.
I am Naomi Francis. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Clark.
From the stories that shook Jamaica,
we're having an earthquake,
to those that inspired change and left lasting impacts.
In 2014, to be dealing with an issue such as the Marionine case.
Nationwide 90 FM has been there, diving deep into the issues that matter most to you. As we mark 20 years of dedicated service in 2025, we honor the trust you have placed in us and reaffirm our commitment to serving you, the Jamaican people. Rooted in truth, fairness, and integrity, we continue to provide incisive reporting with a foundation of accountability and respect. While we celebrate our journey, we are also focused on the future, fueled by the same passion and purpose that has always driven us. Thank you for supporting Team Revolution for 2 decades. Stay with us. The best is yet to come.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We're trying to speak life like Sir Cliff Hughes when we were listening to him just now. You see, award-winning journalist, 20 years.
Gonna have to get some coaching.
But I had the privilege of being seated beside Sir Cliff, so I hope I picked up a few things from him. But yes, all right, let's get on with it. We are discussing what can be done to improve police-citizen relations, and we're joined by Mrs. Otara Byfield Nugent, who is the CEO of Police Civil and Oversight Authority, as well as Deputy Commissioner of Police Clifford Blake, and he leads the Inspectorate and Professional Standards Oversight Bureau. Thank you so much, lady and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
We're doing great. I hope it's the same for you, DCP Blake.
Absolutely.
Yes, good afternoon to you and your listeners as well.
Thank you so much. All right. So one of the things to our guest, before we get into it, we know that the JCF has a public interaction policy that details standard operating procedures to designed to guide officer conduct during police public interactions, my apologies. But when we look at data that JFJ conducted, within some communities in the state of public emergency period, those communities that we saw SOE being declared, we found that 55% of the respondents completely distrusted the police compared to 40% distrusting the soldiers. The research that we did said that 27% trusted the soldiers while only 13% trusted the police. And I think I have to put in context that this is not a nationally representative data, because we do find when we look at other information out there that when you talk about at a national level, we know that there is improved trust relations between trust levels rather between police and citizens. But when you go into those communities that tend to have historical trust problems, then you're seeing the data going a little bit low. So DCP, let's start with you. Where would you say trust levels are when it comes to police and civilians?
Just repeat the source of the research data that you just presented.
The one in 2023 was JFJ's survey that we conducted among 1,213 citizens, and we went into communities that where SOEs were declared.
Okay, all right, thanks. Back to your question as to the what can be done to improve the relationship with the police. So that you and your listeners will accept that maybe over the past 8 to 10 years that a significant effort has been made by the JCF through the transformational process to improve our relationship with the public. And when we conduct our meetings, community meetings, we do get this kind of feeling.
DCP? It seems as if we lost DCP Blake. Mrs. Byfield Nugent, where would you say we are with police-citizen relationship, that trust levels, from where you sit? See, we're having some technical difficulty there. We lost both. All right, so just to give some context to our listeners, you know JFJ's position on the state of public emergency. But one of the things we do support the Jamaica Constabulary Force with is the importance of strengthening police-citizen relation, because you can't tackle crime unless you improve that relationship, because you want civilians to feel comfortable to go to the police, call the hotlines and make reports and have that trust levels. That is quite important. So we do support it. But one of the things we wanted to also get a sense of when we're doing our community intervention, what is the trust level? How do citizens feel about the state of public emergency? And what we found was that when you look at things from a national level and you go, for example, in the halfway tree and so on, those general populated areas, you will find people saying, yeah, man, I trust the police, I trust the soldiers, they're doing excellent work. But when you start going into the communities now where SOEs have been declared, you see the numbers falling down a tad, especially in the Kingston areas, the Denham towns and so on, where historically there have been some issues there between the police and the citizens. So it varies across parishes, because we went in St. James as well, we went in Clarendon, St. Anne. So, it's something for us to look into. How can we improve, especially in an environment where you have those tough on crime laws? We're moving towards ESMA. How do you strengthen that relationship? How do you ensure that the officers, they continue to do their work with diligence, but at the same time respecting human rights? How do we promote that? I think is the conversation we want to have with both DCP Blake and Mrs. Byfield Nugent. Mrs. Nugent, you're back with us?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. So the question that we were asking earlier, where do you see the trust levels between the police and citizens from where you sit? How are we doing there?
From where we sit, as you had indicated, it varies depending on where you go. So for us at the PCOA, what we normally do is that we have a citizen satisfaction survey that forms a part of a program that we have, Transforming Our Police Service. And so it is done according to the area that we're inspecting. So what we would have, last year, for instance, we would have inspected Area 2, which comprises St. Mary, Portland, and St. Anne Division. And what we have found there is that there's probably, based on the sample that we have, which was probably about 900 and something persons within that location, it would show probably a 60% satisfaction rating for the services they get from the police. But again, it depends on where you are and the kind of issues that you're dealing with and the kind of engagement that goes on within those locations. So, for instance, you might have a division where there's a strong presence in terms of community meetings and widely publicized meetings and significant participation from the citizen, and so you'll find a different response. Now, we have not gone specifically yet to areas that have SOEs. That may form part of what we do this year because of where we're going to have TOPS, which is Area 5. And so I don't know what will happen when we go there to do the citizen satisfaction survey. But what is important, these surveys are also online on our website. So it's very important that I say it now for citizens to be a part and to take part in these surveys, because that is how you start to generate data about what the service is like. And so you're able to now point out the gaps for improvement. So citizen participation in these surveys is very critical. But as I say, it may vary from area to area or division to division, depending on the kind of issues and the strength of the community engagement in those areas.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Nugent. Before the break, before we lost you both, DCP, you were giving us an idea of some of the strategies that the JCF has already implemented to sort of address this issue and a snapshot of where we are now. If you could just pick up.
I don't know where I lost you, because
you mentioned the transformational project. That was the last thing I picked up.
Okay. Yes. And I'll say, as we continue on our transformational route, when some of our stations that have been ISO 9001 certified, there is a computer. We have a survey computer, customer satisfaction computer there, where members of the public are invited to respond. It's a survey app. They are invited to respond as to the quality of their service. And so far, we have 21 stations, sites, we call them sites, 21 stations that are actually so certified, including Matilda's Corner, Dwayne Park, Huntsby, quite a number of stations. And consistently, the feedback of the customer service satisfaction rate is around 75%, which shows a good level of interaction. But the question you further posed was those communities that are culturally have low police trust.
Yes.
I was making the point that it's going to take more effort to get those communities back up to the trust level that we are seeing from other more formal communities and members of the public. But I'm confident that based on the strategic plan we have, based on the significant amount of resources that we are dedicating to these communities and our police public interaction policies, that we are going to see an increased trust level between this. And we are seeing it in terms of our crime fighting effort and the level of support we are getting from these communities. So, I'm confident about it based on the results that we are currently seeing.
I want you both to stay with us when we take the break and we come back, because one of the things I want to touch on with you, DCP, is the reality is that when you look again on some of the communities and the interactions that we've seen, if you could just speak to a little bit more about how it is that the trust can be improved, given the realities that you do have a few bad apples within the force. Unfortunately, sometimes all the good work that is being done, and we know we have excellent officers like both of you here, but you have a few where unfortunately it's picked up. How do we improve some of those things generally to ensure that when people are looking on, even if these things happen, we can have trust in the system that these bad apples, they're being appropriately disciplined and we're aware of it, and then we can have confidence to say that the JCF is really addressing these issues and my concerns have been dealt with. A lot was just said, but I hope you can talk through it with us when we return from the break.
Yes.
Okay.
At the Jamaica Customs Agency, we care for our employees, customers, stakeholders, citizens, and our country. Customs cares. The temperature by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
31 degrees Celsius here in Kingston and 29. It's much, much cooler in Montego Bay.
Come to Marshall's Pharmacy today for your free medication management consultation. Let us guide you in taking care of what matters most, the health of you and your family. Shop now for gifts, personal care, household and stationery items, plus print services powered by Print Corner. Follow us on Instagram at Marshall's Pharmacy. Call or WhatsApp us at 876-491-7841. We are open late every day to serve you.
Good morning and welcome to the newest edition to the Nationwide News Network family on Hot 102.
Good afternoon, I'm Erica Allen.
I'm Elizabeth Bennett.
In Nationwide News at this hour.
This is Nationwide. I'm Cliff Hughes.
And I'm Carol Narcisse.
Morning, welcome to This Morning on Hot 102.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Beverly Anderson Manley. Good morning and welcome.
For 20 years, Nationwide 90 FM has been your trusted source for breaking news, delivering critical updates when you needed them most. 3:37 in the afternoon, we interrupt to bring you more from the Wandon Klansman gang trial. Another guilty verdict. With fearless, fact-based journalism that unearthed the truth.
Between 2012 and 2018, nearly $5.5 million was taken from the track legend.
And insightful commentary that sparked meaningful conversations and shifted perspectives.
Welcome to the front page. I'm Emily Crooks.
I am Naomi Francis. We're pleased to be joined by Roger Clark.
From the stories that shook Jamaica,
we're having an earthquake,
to those that inspired change and left lasting impacts.
In 2014, to be dealing with an issue such as the Marianine case.
Nationwide 90 FM has been there, diving deep into the issues that matter most to you. As we mark 20 years of dedicated service in 2025, we honor the trust you have placed in us and reaffirm our commitment to serving you, the Jamaican people. Rooted in truth, fairness, and integrity, we continue to provide incisive reporting with a foundation of accountability and respect. While we celebrate our journey, we are also focused on the future, fueled by the same passion and purpose that has always driven us. Thank you for supporting Team Revolution for 2 decades. Stay with us. The best is yet to come.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We've been discussing how we can improve police and citizen relations, and we are joined by Mrs. Byfield Nugent, the CEO from the Police Civilian Oversight Authority, and DCP Clifford Blake, who is heading the Inspectorate and Professional Standards Oversight Bureau. Before we took the break, Mikel gave a quite a long-winded statement, but the essence of it is we know that there are good efforts being undertaken by the JCF, but those efforts can sometimes be undermined by some of those bad apples, as Mikel would say, in the force that create these negative headlines in interactions with citizens. So I wanted to ask you first, DCP, as a citizen, what can I do if I have an interaction like that? And what are the steps that happen once I make a report? What is the level of accountability, or what is the accountability process that might take place once a report like that is made?
First, let me say that any relationship in life, it is grounded and established on the whole question of trust, confidentiality, and integrity. And that same goes for police citizens interaction. If an incident occurs where a member of the public feels that they are aggrieved, there are options. If it is use of force in terms of violence, then, we do have INDECOM, which is established to deal with matters of where use of force is concerned regarding members of the security forces. We have our IPROB, which is the JCF internal arm, where citizens can make complaints. We also deal with the use of force also. Mm-hmm. Some of our investigators are jointly with INCOM. Where issues concerning departmental breaches and issues of misconduct, then that is exclusively our IPROB responsibility. Mm-hmm. And here is where the question, IPROB has, our mandate is to ensure that we expedite these investigations. As a matter of fact, our policy requires that within the first 7 days, we must update the complainants, and then thereafter, every 14 days. Mm-hmm. We also have our disciplinary process. But one of the things that we have found out is that when it comes to the formal disciplinary process, we have sometimes reluctance on some members of the public sometimes to participate. They are saying, when we made the complaint, we didn't expect that we will have to come to any tribunal to give mm-hmm. evidence, and we are no longer interested. So sometimes that thwarts the process, our disciplinary process. So what we have also as a policy is our early intervention system, where, once 3 complaints have been made against a member within a particular division, we have an intervention process. Sometimes we use our chaplaincy unit, mm-hmm. and arising from this intervention process, we may have retraining. In many instances, we have transfer, because some members, what we have found out is that some members, based on their conduct within a particular environment, that they have lost the trust to effectively execute the functions of a police within a particular geographic space, because members of the public no longer have any confidence in them. So our early intervention process sometimes move these persons out of this environment and retrain them, and we reassign them. Because some persons, by their very nature, sometimes they have difficulty communicating with persons. So we have different formations within the organization where we make an assessment and find out where their skills can best be utilized. Mm-hmm. So we have a quite a large policy suite from which we can make interventions and take action.
Yeah, thanks for outlining that, DCP. Before we get to Mrs. Byfield, one of our listeners asking, 3 complaints, what if it is 1 complaint, but the extent of it is quite significant? I've seen, since I've been here
10 months, and I've seen quite a number of our members who have been arrested. Arrested just based on one complaint.
Yes.
You know, but what I'm saying, like especially when it comes to violence, like assault or those things, we have arrested quite a number of persons. Up to last week, one member was arrested based on a complaint here.
Yes.
But you know, what we're saying is that that's our trigger policy that automatically once over a 7-year period, you have our system flag you when you have three complaints come against you.
Yes.
Then we are saying that this person needs to be retrained. We need to reevaluate and reassess.
Maybe like some verbal assaults and so on. If you hear it, you rough up somebody, nothing that maybe reach the level of assault as is outlined.
Those would find like administrative misconduct. But once it comes to criminal, anything criminal in terms of assault, anything which is a breach of the law, then automatically we have to investigate it. Some of them we submit them to the Director of Public Prosecution. Others we go straight ahead and charge them. But once it's a breach of the law, then we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, some of it even involves some of our members who are involved in like road traffic accidents, and they are culpable based on the evidence. Then we have to go ahead and prosecute them.
Okay. Thank you for that again, DCP. So, I want to switch over to Mrs. Nugent. First of all, just for our listeners, could you give us an idea of what the Police Civilian Oversight Authority does? I know what it does, but they may not know what it does. So,
I like the disclaimer. She knows what you do.
I do.
Okay, all right. So that our listeners are clear, first of all, we're not police officers. We are independent of the JCF, and the members who sit on the PCOA are civilians, right? So we have established that. But essentially what the PCOA, it's a creature of statute, and what we essentially do is we conduct inspections and audits of the operations of the JCF to see whether or not basically they are complying with their standard operating procedures and policies. So we go in, look at the procedures, look at the policies, are you following them basically? That is what we do. So we can look at anything pretty much as it relates to the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And I have to make that distinction. It's the JCF, not the JDF, the JCF.
Yes.
Right. So pretty much the Auditor General type function.
Okay.
What I want,
go ahead.
Contributing to the discussion, what I want to first of all establish, and I think we have to accept, is that gone are the days when we used to see security and law enforcement in a traditional way where it was just a police issue. And in going forward in any kind of way, we have to now accept that crime and public order has evolved in such a way that it requires the citizen to be involved in the process of law enforcement. It requires the citizen to have some kind of ownership, some kind of shared responsibility for creating a safe space for not only themselves, but for others to exist in. So we have to first of all accept that. And if we are going to accept that the citizen is a critical part of the process, what it means now is that we have to facilitate discussions like these as to how you can improve the relationship, because you're going to have that increased engagement between the citizen and the police. But what it allows for, when you have that input from the citizen and that involvement from the citizen, is that it creates that accountability, because somebody is looking at what the JCF is doing. It fosters that positive engagement between the police and the citizen, and it ultimately builds that trust between both parties. So having established that...
And I'm happy you did, because it's quite important. We all have a role to play.
Absolutely. So we're not telling nobody nothing, we're not saying anything. It's very important that you provide information, that you participate. But what I want to say first and foremost is that improving that relationship between the police and the citizen, I think what is very critical is that the citizen must come from an informed position. So you must have an understanding of what the law requires as it relates to your rights, your roles and responsibilities. So it's not just the police. you as a citizen must ensure that you understand what your rights are, what your responsibilities are as it relates to law enforcement. Because when now you start to engage the police or you have an interaction with the police, both parties will come from an informed position, right?
Yes.
And you can say, this is my right in this circumstance, or this is what you are, and this is there's a development of an expectation from what the service should be from the police. So it's very important that the citizen, wherever it is that you can get and understand. Now, JFJ has a lot of things on the website. The PCOA has a lot of, we have a series of podcasts called Pon the Corner, which discusses.
I love that.
Public
By the way, Mrs. Nugent, we have something called Pon the Corner as well. It's a great minds think alike.
No, maybe we need to get a copyright for that, Yes. So those avenues are very important. People need to know, start to listen, and these podcasts are designed to discuss primarily the public interaction policy and things surrounding law enforcement so that the citizen knows what to expect. We have our citizens, the newsletter online, the monitor online, that has all sorts of information. The JCF, you spoke about the code of conduct as it relates to engagement. That information is available for citizens to know, get the necessary information to make the interaction and the engagement so much better for them.
Yeah. One of the things, DCP, if you could both stay with us for another 5 or so minutes. But, when you were speaking, you mentioned a lot of the disciplinary actions that have been taken. Sometimes as citizens, when we don't know that these accountability measures exist, we can almost lose trust in the process or in an institution. It can be reduced, lowered. Is there any space within the JCF where there are announcements of, while you protect people's individual rights, but announcements that, even if you don't call names, X amount of officers have been involved in things that run contrary to the good standards that you have established, and these are the things that we have done to hold them accountable? Do you think that type of accountability system may, improve the trust levels, you think? Is there any possibility for that?
There are two things that contribute significantly to the question of trust and building relationships, and that is transparency and accountability. Accountability is what action has been taken, and transparency just to make sure that it is fair. And there's a third component to it, communication. So you hold the persons accountable, you ensure in terms of that the process was transparent, and then you communicate it. And in our force orders, I'm aware that the commissioner is in the process of making the force orders a public document rather than a confidential one. And certainly, members will get to see the opportunity, naturally, some actions that have been taken against members. But if you follow our ACS social media, and I must say we have one of the most robust social media in terms of our communication process.
Yes.
You will see that whenever there's an incident, if there's an immediate action in terms of removing from frontline duty or the person is arrested or detained, that it is immediately communicated to members of the public what action is taken. If we just look back at the incident where the police officers were charged for murder at the Windward Road incident,
yes,
as soon as it became public knowledge, the commissioner directed that they must be arrested, and it was communicated to the members of the public, and in working along and investigating along with Indicom, each step of the way was made public through our formal media as well as our social media platforms.
Yes.
So the whole question of transparency and communicating, because this is where the confidence is built. When you give feedback,
yes,
and persons are aware of what's happening, and they have the ability to assess and to decide whether or not it was transparent and fair.
Yes. And may I say, DCP, for the record, I welcome the update that these force orders will become public document. And I do acknowledge that we've seen much improvement from the JCF with communications. Even when sometimes, like a little announcement was made recently that we didn't necessarily appreciate, which we will speak to separately and privately with the commissioner there. But we do welcome the improvements in this respect, because some of the best practices that we've seen overseas, for example, that these disciplinary actions are public documents. You know that if this infraction was committed, this is the disciplinary action that will be taken. These are the steps that you can expect. In one jurisdiction that I had the opportunity to visit, and I spoke to the captain of the department, one of the things that they do, DCP, Mrs. Nugent as well, is that you have like a YouTube platform where you get updates. These were the infractions committed by X number of officers, and this was what the end result was. So I quite like the direction that the police commissioner is going. It's a welcomed one. So let me put that on record.
Okay. If I may just add quickly, because I'm mindful of my 5 minutes, I have another 2 o'clock engagement. Yes. Even from IPOB here, it's a policy requirement that we, in addition to update, once a matter comes to closure, then we are obligated to inform the persons who made the complaint as to the outcome of the process.
Yes. Right. I know you both have to go quickly, so I'm going to ask for last word from each of you, starting with Mrs. Byfield Nugent. How do we strengthen relationships with our relations with our citizens? Where do we go from here?
Okay, first of all, let me quickly say the fact that we have established oversight institutions that are external. Well, you have IPOB as the internal review body, but you have external oversight institutions such as Indicom and ourselves. That is the direction we need to go, where there are independent reviews, independent inspections and audits of what the JCF is doing, because that now provides independent information to the citizen as it relates to how the JCF is performing. So that's a good way to start up, to finish up the discussion. But just to say to the citizens that participation in stakeholder engagement and meetings is very critical, because now that becomes a part of what the JCF puts in its plans as it relates to the needs and concerns of community. So your participation and your involvement is very critical. I remember back about a couple of years ago, we had a community and how they have partnered to make a better relationship between police and citizens. So that is coming. Everything is on the website. You can go there and find out. We have complaints a portal, a complaints portal, a commendation portal. So it allows you now to not only talk about the good things that you experience and the bad things, you can relate that to us so we can find out what are the issues and to create programs to address those gaps in the system.
Wonderful. DCP, last word from you before you have to go?
Yes, it's a question. One hand can't clap, so it requires the JCF and members of the public to work together. So whilst we continue with our various policies and our activities, we have our community relation arms. You mentioned Pandikana, where we have our pop-ups. Our pop-up is a similar program where we turn up in communities and have meetings at corners and some of the
and your
social
band
spaces. Yes,
certainly. I love it.
Yes, and we have our ISO 9001 certification program, which ensures guaranteed standards in terms of our service to members of the public. We have our neighborhood watch, all our regular program, youth clubs. We are building out our community safety and security branch with additional number. Recently, 105 additional officers were transferred for the school safety, school resource officers program. Put our members in the school, 105 persons. And Commissioner, recently we are just coming from a strategic retreat, and that's one of the programs to give additional persons to our community safety and security branch so that they can have further reach into some of these challenging communities in terms of building our relationship. At the same time, we always invite members of the public to partner with us, to give us information on crimes, and to even give us suggestions as to how we can continue to improve our working relationship with them. But the figures that we have so far in terms of our crime reduction strategies and our support, even our wanted when the program, it's overwhelming to see the kind of responses that we are getting whenever we put out some of these persons who are wanted. So it's on the trajectory is going up, and we are doing everything to improve on it.
Thank you so much. We're certainly happy to hear of some of these announcements. We knew of them before, but we're so grateful for both of you being with us from about 1:15, close to 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
It seems we need to go and link up on one of the corners, right?
Listen, Mrs. Byfield Nugent, you don't know who you're talking to, and I'm calling her right after the program ends.
All right, take care.
Have a good day to you both.
All right, you're welcome.
All right. That was Otara Byfield Nugent, the CEO of Police Civil and Oversight Authority, and DCP Clifford Blake, who is the head of IProbe. One of the things, the JCF has good communications personnel. I think we should have something where we challenge this inform if it did and have something that is positive to say. It's good to inform. Be a part of the process once it is safe for you to do so we can play our respective roles in really tackling crime in the country. We're coming up on time, and I want to go on air into some of the details, but JFJ spoke recently about the body-worn cameras, and I saw a press release from the JCF, though, using words that I quite frankly find unfortunate, misinformation and disinformation. And it was around a line that we did not say. The press release asserted that we indicated that the police is resisting body-worn cameras. At no point was that statement made. So I really hope that the JCF will respond to clarify how it came to that conclusion and issue an apology to the organization. I think it is important, because calling for body-worn cameras and noting that there is an absence in planned operations is not saying that there are no body-worn cameras at all. And if it is a challenge with our wording, then I would hope that the JCF would have reached out rather than using such strong language. That is not the case. We made no such assertion, and I think an apology is in order based on that press release. That is all I will say publicly on the matter. We responded via Twitter, and I hope that the JCF will see it fit to respond to us as a learning organization, as we said. Point to us the inaccuracies in our press statement, and we will so correct. But otherwise, I think a retraction is in order from the JCF based on that press statement that they released over the weekend. But it was certainly good to have DCP Blake and Mrs. Nugent. Yes, Jade?
Yes, it was great.
Yeah.
And it was good to hear about some of the things that have already started. To see that there is such a commitment coming from the JCF, coming from the PCOA, in ensuring that we are improving this police-citizen relationship. So that was where
and kudos to Dr. Kevin Blake, because the force orders, it's not a public document. And to know that you can perhaps in the future go online, see what the obligations are of our officers, and if they breach these obligations, then this is the disciplinary action. I'm happy that the JCF is going in that direction, and so very, very good update there.
Yeah, I have to agree. So we have a minute, but we do have a winner for a trivia question. I don't know if she's still on, but Annie Smith won this week. The question was, how many police divisions do we have in Jamaica? The answer is 19.
So and a beat news commentator this week.
Yes. But I don't think Annie is in the jurisdiction. But if you want to tell us what to do with your prize, Annie, you can send a WhatsApp to 2397583 so we can pass it on. If we don't hear from you, though, we are going to go on to our next winning winner.
Winning winner.
Yes.
What a term.
Because they would have both won the same amount. It's just that would be the next person in line.
All right. It was a good Monday. Good Monday. Really enjoyed today's show and our guest. And we'll be reaching out to Mrs. Nugent as we come off here, I tell you. All right. All right. My name is Mikkel Jackson, Executive Director of JFJ.
And I'm Jade Williams, Policy Research and Advocacy Specialist.
She's still getting used to the title.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Right.
listeners. Have a good day.
Justice, the people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
It's Monday. Get over your blues. Or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The E-Zone is here for you. With this thing, Honeybee.
And Karim Boyatings
From 3 to 5 p.m. on Nationwide 90 FM.
We've got your entertainment news.
Then we want to hear your views. Why you say?
Jump in the mix.
Or the